And then when one adds the influence of the industrial model, which the Industrial Revolution happened during the Gilded Age, the late 1800s, you see a clear comparison between schools and factories. Schools are highly regimented by the bells. You have half hour for lunch. There's time constraints. Obedience. You must do what your boss tells you. And so the point of schools, especially during the industrial age, were to prepare young Americans to work in the factories. And you don't want independent thinkers to do, sort of what's that? Henry Ford. Henry Ford came up with it, the assembly line. So to do an assembly line type job, you just have to show up and do it like a cog in the machine. That's the point of the industrial model for education. The point of schools were to prepare the young Americans to get used to the factories. Today, with all the outsourcing, America's industrial base is slipping. So we're in need of something better. Today's American public schools have been indoctrinated with the three-tier Prussian industrial educational model. One of the most important principles that newly minted teachers learn in American normal schools, aka teacher training schools, which is a graduate level school, after you get your undergraduate, costs $50,000. Germany, a lot of these, progressive nations actually want to invest in teachers, so they pay for their education, so they have the best teachers educating their citizenry. But one of the most important principles is classroom management. You got to manage them. Make sure they're all sitting down. Shut up. Be quiet. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm the king. I'm the massa. You're the dumb masses. Know your role. Classroom management. And from classroom management, we get the sacred principle of 100% compliance. Now, 100% compliance, this is all the teacher training schools. I would say there's a few, perhaps, that doesn't do this, but 90-something% of teacher training schools are teaching young would-be starry ideal teachers to be in favor of 100% compliance. And how will teacher training schools enforce that? They will force them to be 100% compliant. There's a book called To Teach Like a Champion, very popular book. It was the book that Spalding University used. And it was a popular textbook for current soon-to-be teachers in American teacher training schools, written by Doug Lemov, Lemov. And he advocates 100% compliance. No ifs, ands, or buts. You get 100% compliance. For example, if you snap your finger, if you say, hey, all eyes on me, if you raise your hand, if you say, hey, class, class, you must get all the students in the room's attention. If they're talking, doing something else, if you allow any of those people to not do as you tell them, that encourages dissent and for people to question your authority. And you're the dictator. You're the fascist dictator. You can't have your authority questioned. You're the boss. They're the dumb masses, and they do as you tell them to do. Doug Lemov advocates 100% compliance. Here's a small video clip.
The book is called 100%. It's about how champion teachers get 100% of students to do what they ask 100% of the time. That may sound like a recipe for conflict, but when you watch champions at work, you see that it's all about finesse. First, like Colleen Driggs, champions use the least invasive form of intervention. The idea is to avoid breaking the thread of instruction. Colleen corrects with hand gestures, and that means the teaching goes on. If you've got one kid who's off task and you interrupt the task for everyone to fix it, you'll end up with 3 more kids off task. And when you stop to fix them, it will happen again. Minimally invasive correction helps avoid that death spiral.
So doing surveys actually about how much civics are being taught or how much democracy is being taught in public education is actually sort of a fool's stance, right? Of course it's fascist totalitarianism. Of course it's hierarchical. Just one example, there's many, but this is Boyd County. You see the URL address. And they use the 100% compliance. They use Doug Lamove's Teach Like a Champion, 49 techniques, Doug Lamove. There it is, right? So they use that. Well, when you do this, even though he doesn't really say anything, all he is talking about is classroom management and talking about, like, micromanaging people. And just one example, right, there's somebody, how to use your words and tone to communicate with students in a positive way. Small shifts in your language can make a difference. Instead of harping on the past, Kiana, stop looking back at Tanya. Instead of saying it like that, you can just say, hey, Kiana, I need your eyes forward. But ultimately, the crime is Kiana looked at Tanya. That was her crime. That's the reason why she got called out, humiliated, and being treated like, she done something wrong. What did you do? Well, I looked at my friend. Hey, you're not allowed to have friends here. I'm the boss. Look at me. All eyes on me. I need your eyes forward. And that's positive. That's a positive way to control, manipulate, exploit, get people to do what you say, right? It's not convincing them. It's using control and power techniques, Machiavellian techniques, in order to get compliance, which ultimately destroys humanity. Freedom isn't just a virtue, it's a necessary condition for life. You must have freedom just to live.
Even Doug Lamove himself writes in the book that his own 100% compliance is draconian and power hungry. And all you see is a battle of wills. You got to smash the students' wills. And he understands it. He sees it. He sees that the battle of wills against the students precisely for what it is. Nothing else would be tolerated in a properly managed classroom in America, but an obedience-obsessed classroom with a grinding discipline that's expected for all. Doug Lamove barely qualifies these expectations by saying that the culture of compliance should also be a positive one, and most importantly, invisible. Not only does Doug Lamove demand a sneaky and somehow positive 100% compliance, but Doug Lamove's micromanaging tyranny includes that all the students to never even have their elbows on the desk. You have your elbows on the desk, you're a criminal. You're going to get yelled at. You're going to get treated with scorn and be humiliated in front of everybody. Hey, do as I tell you. And Doug Lamove will even get the Teachers of America to complain if an educator's students only raise their hands halfway up. I mentioned it before, but if you're like, hey, teacher, call me. Because you're not allowed to just talk, right? It's not like you got freedom of speech. Which actually, Tinker v. Des Moines says that you do have freedom of speech. Even though, you're a child, you're still an American. You don't get adult rights, you get children's rights. And the Tinker v. Des Moines, they were wearing a patch on their arm which showed their opposition to the Vietnam War. And they were getting in trouble for that because they said, no, you cannot use that type of speech. But it turns out you are allowed to use that type of speech. So, for Doug Lamove, only 100% compliance is acceptable behavior. You want to be called on? Don't just raise your hand. Raise your hand real tall. Be quiet. Don't go ooh, ooh, ooh. None of that. None of that. You gotta act exactly as they tell you to act. They control your behavior. They tell you what to do. And when you force and teach people to always, to be obedient, they're going to be manipulated for the rest of their lives. Only 100% compliance is acceptable for Doug Lamove and for American teacher training schools and for American teachers in public schools all across the United States. The thing with 100% compliance was not even Adolf Hitler was able to get 100% compliance. 100%? Every single person? What if you love freedom? What if you love to feel like a human and you care about your own humanity? And it's a good thing that Adolf Hitler did not get 100% compliance. Thank God for that. If August Land Messer was my relation, I'd be a proud man. Everybody else is doing the Mein Kampf thing or whatever. The salute, right? The Hitler Nazi salute. But not August Landmesser. he had his arms crossed. And he was like, I'm not going to comply. I'm not going to worship you like some sort of deity. But everybody else was. He was the only one, the only person. But it shows that even Adolf Hitler wasn't able to get 100% compliance. If the teacher says, everybody raise their hands, and they had an August Landmesser in class, I will not raise my hand. He's going to get his parents called. He's going to have to go to ISAP. He's going to have some security guard drag him out of class and be humiliated. August Landmesser did what was right when everybody else was doing wrong. Conforming to a sick society is not a sign of progress, and obedience is not a virtue. Because when you oppress somebody, in order to oppress somebody, you dehumanize the oppressed. And by taking away one's freedom, since it's a necessary condition just for life, you're also taking away that which makes them human. You're taking their humanity away. And so with slaves, with their humanity foregone, also gone are their consciences, their morals and ethics, their ability to empathize with others, democratic virtues, spirit, soul, ability to make autonomous, independent decisions, their sense of wonder and justice, curiosity, ambition, experiences, history, thoughts, heart, body, and brain are all gone with it. What was once a man or a woman is now a beast, an ox, to be used to plow the fields, not a person with a consciousness to be respected and reconciled with, to have conversations with, to build culture with. Frederick Douglass says, find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. In the light of these ideas, Negroes will be hunted at the north and held and flogged at the south, so long as they submit to those devilish outrages and make no resistance, either moral or physical. Men may not get all they pay for in this world, but they must certainly pay for all that they get. If we ever get free from the oppressions and wrongs heaped upon us, we must pay for their removal. We must do this by labor, by suffering, by sacrifice, and if needs be, by our lives and the lives of others. Howard Zinn said that the problem with Americans was not disobedience, not disobedience, but it was obedience. Americans are too obedient in the face of poverty, in the face of homelessness, in the face of war, in the face of violence and brutality. They're too obedient. So what's the solution? What are we supposed to do? Well, I think it's simple. I think we introduce civics. We teach them democracy. We teach them how to be responsible stewards of that great gift that the revolutionaries gave all Americans. Freedom. We need to introduce freedom and democracy into the classrooms. By recognizing that children have rights, American rights, not adult rights, but children's rights, we then have to choose a format to educate them in a room that respects the freedom of the individual. The only form of government that makes logical sense is a democracy. Instead of having autocratic dictators and the slave masses obeying, we could try democracy by teaching children to stake a claim in their own education, and by teaching democratic forms and functions in a democratic society, we learn to tolerate opinions we disagree with, as well as how to debate, argue, and defend our positions. We learn that the minority get their say and that the majority get their way. If our schools do not teach democratic practices and forms, where do Americans learn about how to behave in a democracy? Where do we learn? Do we learn at a fast food corporation, at Taco Bell, we're going to learn about democracy? In the military, where we're required to not ask why, but just to do and die, will we learn democracy there? Corporations, military, they are hierarchical. That's the opposite of democracy. So if we're not learning democracy in the schools, in the workplace, where are we learning democracy? Schools are the proper place to learn democracy. The voter turnout rate in Kentucky was 46%. Why are we not all voting? That's not the majority. Schools are the proper place to learn democracy. And if the administration and the teachers are practicing democratic values themselves, that virtue can easily be transferable.